still outside. It's been very wet over these last few weeks, so I've not been able to get outside much, but I've got a lot to do. Lifting of things like the dahlias, and I've still got a few pelargoniums in the front garden just to get out of the ground and get into the greenhouse. So lots to cover with you in this little show. I'm also going to just take you back in time, as my brother suggested, and show you what the garden was like when I first started, and you can see the difference to what we've got today. So we're going to sort of sum up the year today. It's coming to the end of our third season of a year gardening, and how that time has gone past. 3 years, amazing. And then we're going to be preparing for our winter break. But now it's time to crack on with our December show in A Year Gardening. Well, I'm out here lifting the dahlia tubers. The ground is a lot wetter than I really would have liked it to be, because these have got to dry out, but also I've got to protect these from the frost. Now, they've kept flowering and flowering now. We're right the way through to near enough the end of November now, and the flowers have died off. It's time to lift them. So I'll just show you what I'm doing on that. When I'm lifting the tubers, I'm making sure that I can get the fork about 20 to 30 centimetres away from the plant. Give it a good lift. Now this ground is very wet, but I like to get the plant up nicely and then remove as much of this soil as I possibly can. Now, these are going to need to dry out down in the greenhouse, or maybe in the polytunnel on the shelving. Once I've got the tuber like this, remove the foliage, put that into my tray. And we'll do this with the next plant here as well. So we've got to watch what plants we've got. This is a smaller one here. Find out where those roots are. There we go. There we go. Peel off this soil within the tubers. Take off that growth and in the pot to dry. I've got only another couple just to lift now. It's a much bigger one. Taking all of this off of here. as much as I can remove by hand. I don't want to damage the plant too much, but this compost does need to come off because we don't want the plants to rot. And once this dries out, in about a week's time, I'll get a paintbrush and clear off all of the compost before drying them out to overwinter. And that's another one for in here. We've got just another couple to go. Well, that's the dahlias all lifted. I'm leaving these lovely echinacea heads on here. The plants are actually growing through for next year already, and I'll probably take those down in the spring. Tidy up the weeds that are coming through underneath here, which I've not been able to get to, and prepare this for next spring and summer. The next little job, I've got 4 or 5 pelargoniums in that side over there, which I'm now going to lift and get those down to the greenhouse as well. And I think that's a pretty good place for us to move to now, and I'll show you the drying process for my dahlia tubers. Well, it's nice to be in the greenhouse and out of that wind, and I've got my dahlia tubers here. Now they're all very, very damp at the moment, but in order to overwinter them we need to dry them out, and so I'll show you what I do. It's a couple of stages, but first of all I need to draw the moisture out of this soil so that I can actually clean them up, ready for packing up for winter. So we'll do that now. Now this is quite a simple process, so I'm just going to move these tubers all over to one side. We've got quite a few, a little bit of foliage there we don't need. So all I do is I take some newspaper, and I'll just keep that on the bottom shelf here. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to scrunch this newspaper up, set that in the corner there, and one tuber, put it inside there, give it a light wrap. I'm going to leave it open to the air, but just so that this newspaper can draw the moisture out of that compost and out of the root, and give it a chance just to dry out, but all the time keeping it so that the air can get to it. The newspaper will act sort of like a sponge to draw the moisture out of that soil. The great thing is that we can replace this in about a week's time, clear off this moisture, clear off the compost, and have these wonderful plants ready to overwinter, to go back into the ground next spring and give us some lovely colour again. And I must admit, I thought these had died during the year, but once the rain came back, these plants came back to life. So I'm so happy. Can't describe the happiness I felt when I saw the flowers coming on these. Absolutely wonderful. So that's these getting ready to overwinter. Now, whilst we're talking of overwintering, these are starting to dry out now, and I can start removing all of the dead leaves on here, ready to start taking my cuttings for next year. Now, all of these have given us some great joy in the summer, but now they're starting to just dry a little. I'm keeping them moist for the winter. They'll keep giving me a nice display in here. As long as I can keep deadheading them, removing these flowers. I have my secateurs here and we can just take some off. And I will find certain shoots. I mean, there's a lovely area on here, and we'll get a couple of plants off of that. And so this is going to be a breeding ground for my pelargoniums and my geraniums and my fuchsias for next year. Now, something I'm going to be doing in the next few days or so, I'm going to be planting up some pea seeds to give us some additional flavour for salads during the winter. They won't come to peas, but it'll give us some pea shoots, which will be really, really nice for the winter. And all the time we can grow fresh, sustainable foods, we should be doing that. And that's what the greenhouse and the polytunnel give me for winter veg. I've got some potatoes and some radishes and some beetroot growing in the polytunnel at the moment, and everything is going really, really well. I'm loving it. So now I'm going to just give you an opportunity to see the garden, not when we very first started, but after around about 6 months, and the progressions we've made on the garden since then. It's interesting looking back to when we first started, how things have changed and how plans have moved on. Originally just wanted a big grass area with some borders, but as the garden started to develop, I realised I just didn't want a grassy lawn, but I wanted an area to enjoy the plants in. So this is how it started off, as a grassy area. We set it up so that we could just enjoy ourselves on a lawn. But as I say, time developed, I realised I didn't want that. And one of the first things that went in was this Alamankia tree, which my son bought me, and that's in this lovely border now. As you can see, the tree is grown so that it flowers nicely. And we've added other borders like the peace garden. We've changed the front garden, added bits there. And the shrubs are growing lovely in the back garden. There have been many things have changed. The little herb garden at the deck here, which I don't have now, but the greenhouse does remain a constant. Well, that brings me to the end of season 3, our 3rd year of a year gardening. But there is so much to look forward to. So next year I'm going to be showing you the extension of the pond, the repairs to the polytunnel, because the wind has broken the zip on the roll-up door at one end. So I'm going to replace that with a wooden frame and then use the plastic that I take off to complete the doors. And I will show you all of that when we return next March. Now, also next year, one of us who you know, who actually lives in this house here, is going to be 70 years old, which is quite an achievement. And also Julie and I will be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary. So it's going to be quite a special year for us. Now, excuse me, the garden has been through quite a lot of trauma this year with the drought and the exceedingly hot and dry weather that we had. But everything has come back to life. Everything is looking wonderful. And we're preparing for next year. Hopefully it'll be a more normal year with the seasons in order, because when you look at the plants now and the fact it's the end of November, we've still got roses in flower. The dahlias were still in flower that I had to lift, but it just seems that the climate has changed considerably and we need to develop the garden towards that. And with that in mind, I've got some new plants that I'm going to be putting in, some grasses and some more drought tolerant plants, because we don't know how things are going to go forward, and I just want the garden to be a nice relaxing place, and we're almost there. I don't think that after the changes that I need to make over this winter and early spring, there'll be a lot to do in the garden. But there's a new development on the horizon, because I'm in line to get an allotment as well. So there'll be a lot of work to do on that front. So next year is looking very productive, very promising, and with the seeds that will be going in over the next month, 2 months in the greenhouse and polytunnel to prepare for next year, with the cuttings that we're going to be taking to create new life and new plants, everything's going to look rosy, I am sure. So I'm going to leave you looking forward to Christmas as we celebrate the birth of our Lord and the celebrations that we all have at that time. Looking forward to a new year, and I'm sure I'll be able to sit in my garden on New Year's Eve and watch everybody else's fireworks and enjoy the celebrations that everyone has as we welcome in the year of 2023. And then in March of next year, we'll be back with Series 4, our 4th year in A Year Gardening. And there will be a lot that we go through: cultivation, propagation, and the enjoyment of being able to sit, enjoy, and relax in the garden. There's always work to do, of course, but hopefully the work side of things is going to slow down, and the enjoyment side is going to grow much more. So with that, I will bid you farewell from season 3. We will look forward to 2023. But I will just leave you with a few words. Stay safe, be well, be kind to each other. Happy gardening, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and cheers.